Yo, what's up guys? New video talking about artifacts, and this is a very difficult topic. I made a video series about 13 videos on this topic already, and with all of that it's pretty much covered, but the video series is too long. And what people want to know is simply what artifacts to keep, what artifacts to sell, what artifacts to aim on, that kind of stuff. It is very difficult, however, even for me that have been farming artifacts for like the longest time. I've been running this for the last 2 weeks. At some point I noticed like, yo, I've been selling this and this and I could have actually kept that. So it's very difficult to actually keep track of all of the artifacts. There's so many good artifacts, there's so many good lines, but I try to break it down in a short version here in this video. So stay tuned with me. You're really gonna like this video. Also, if you don't have, like, if your whole storage box is full of artifacts you didn't up because you don't know what to sell, what to keep, that kind of stuff, this video is exactly for you. And I know there's a whole bunch of people out there that have really shitty artifacts just because they don't really understand what artifacts are good. I don't want to mess up and I don't really want to farm it when my storage box is full. Yes, we could kind of need more than 400 storage, but I'm also gonna talk over tips that can help you increase your storage and actually sell you stuff and like a whole bunch of things. So stay tuned for this whole video. Actually watch this whole video, like this video if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. So first of all, what I want to talk about is what are the artifacts I use, and I broke it down to you by a pretty easy thing because I made a video of X unit uses X artifact, blah blah blah. But let's actually group units down to multiple things. So actually at the top here we have multi-hitters. Multi-hitters add damage by speed, HP, attack, and defense. It's mostly also in that order what does most damage. Depending on what unit you have, some units actually deal more damage from attack than HP. And defense in most cases is the worst because if you get a speed buff, your additional damage by speed does more. If you get a defense break, your additional damage by defense does less. Attack buff, same thing. If your HP goes lower for the RTA battle, then it also does less. But a whole bunch of units, this is probably the best artifact you can get. Then secondary, we have the single check ACK units, which is very common. For example, a Vanessa S2. It's the only skill in the whole list that she has that actually has an accuracy check. So you want to use this. Do not go use this on a Hathor, for example, because Hathor you kind of want to have max accuracy on S1, 2, and 3. So therefore, just maxing your accuracy S3 on a Hathor is not that beneficial. So try to look for those units with a single accuracy check that you really want to do. For example, a Kaki S1. Those kind of units. Now we have single damage, crit damage units for crit damage on Axe skill. Those are very good on your offense units. Let's say a Kali, you just want to do the crit on the S2, or your Copper, you just want to do the crit on the S3. But for example, if you go crit damage S3 on a Savannah, it's not that good because you want to have crit damage on all 3 skills, so maybe it fits to do something else in there. For example, the most important thing for a Savannah is to land your accuracy S3, so accuracy S3 is a really good call there. Also, later on, if you have a multiple skills with single target crit damage, you go for the single target crit damage. Talking about healers, healers is mostly a little bit more difficult because what do you put on a healer? Well, it's very simple. For example, Molly, skill 3 recovery. But what do you want to have next to it? Well, skill 3 recovery, that's already covered. But what you want to put next to it for healers slash supports is mostly speed by lost HP, or defense by lost HP. They don't have that crazy good lines. You could go for a tank, which is reducing element by X, but that mostly works for Siege, doesn't work that much for RTA, because for RTA you don't really know what you're gonna get hit by, who you're gonna get hit by, if they actually target your units with that. So unless you say, for example, your Triana is a tank on Molong, so you actually do reduction of water on wind, which doesn't make too much sense, but those kind of things do actually work. Then your offense units mostly works for Siege as well, but you can use this in RTA. Let's say you make a Barbara that's a Juno killer, so you do fire damage on water, or you actually have a Marsha as a Juno killer and you do fire damage on fire. Those kind of things really work. For Siege, it's pretty obvious. You just, whatever you're gonna hit with whatever, you put the extra damage. This is also very good. This is probably one of the best lines for your PvE units. Keep that in mind. For your PvE units, the offensive units, additional damage on water for your team against giants, for example, your Lucian, is gonna make you a lot easier to amputation magic. Then, okay, so we have the units that always work on attack buff. So, for example, an Ataris always has attack buff. Or let's say you use your Lucian or your Zyrus or your Poseidon or your Grogan or anything, an arena offense, you will always have attack buff. So it's kind of a trade-off. What's better, like attack buff, crit damage S3, or anything like that. That's kind of a trial and error thing. There's no hard numbers to it because it depends on the input numbers and the multiple variable numbers that you have for it. While bombers, you have bomb damage, very simple. And then you have the twins, Ikaru's Vert. Vert is also for the Ikaru team, and anything that team up is just damage dealing together. That's the best thing you can go for. So that's pretty much breaking it down very simple of all of the units in the whole game. Maybe I miss a few exceptions here and there that don't really fit all of these lines of what units or what things that could actually work for anything. So let's go for a few examples of artifacts, whether you should keep or sell, and why you should keep or sell. So I've been farming a whole bunch of this in the past, and let's let it run. Okay, cool. And we go for artifacts. Also, really big tip for artifact cleaning. Put your artifacts in this setting. View all artifacts and view the power up. Do not view equipped. And then here, select it on obtained. Then start working from bottom to top. So as you can see here, you can actually see like switches between farming SF and PC. If you would ask me what's more interesting to farm, PC or SF, the elemental things are very good for your PvE stuff, very good for your siege stuff, whereas farming PC is pretty much better for the other one. Also, farming PC is more difficult because there's a lot more lines that don't make sense, like crit damage skill 4 on the support, recovery skill 3 on an attack unit, that kind of stuff. So what I want to say, with a lot of artifacts, give everything a chance to triple roll. All of the skills that I just talked about, or all of the combinations of artifacts, the best way to know what you want or what you want to keep is going through your monsters, looking at your monsters like, okay, this unit, okay, this kind of unit has this kind of artifact. Okay, so I should check for this kind of artifact, this and this kind of unit. Just go through your RTA box, your siege box, any box, just go through your units and actually check like, okay, for this I can use this, for this I can use this. This is this kind of unit, but maybe it's like multiple of the types of units, so you can use multiple artifacts, so you have to figure out what works best. So with that, there's a whole bunch of combinations. But the thing is, what I want to say, give everything a chance to triple. Let me look for an artifact that looks pretty bad, but has a good potential. There are probably one. Yeah, this one. This one looks pretty bad, right? So sure, it can roll into the speed. Speed is what I said already pretty good. But maybe take a different example. Defense, attack, accuracy. Okay, that's not too bad. Actually, all of the artifacts that I kept here with a reason that it can triple roll into something. If there's just one line that can triple roll, it can already be a good artifact. And let me show you why with this artifact. So let me get back to the notepad. Remove this for a second. Make this slightly bit smaller. We have an artifact here with shit line, 36 speed. So let's say the 36 speed becomes like, on average, if you triple roll it, let's say 130 speed, and your last line you get into it is 0.3 HP. Then these two lines already are pretty good. So you have made from an artifact that's one line, already a 2-line artifact that's pretty good. Then you remove which line is least shit. Let's say this line is least shit. You put in a what is it? You put in a 4% attack here, and suddenly you have a artifact that was just one line of good stuff into 3 lines of good stuff. Sure, you have to make it triple roll, the 4th roll have to go into something useful, but give every artifact a chance to do that. If it doesn't do that, let's say, okay, I can't really do this. Let's say this is shit line. It rolls instead of 130, it rolls into a 90, and it rolls double into this line. It's 2. Wait, let's say it just goes like this. If it rolls into this line, just already sell. That's the simplest thing. If it rolls into anything you don't want to triple roll it for, immediately sell. If it is an artifact that has like multiple lines that do actually make sense together, and it rolls in the other ones, then it actually works out. But then you have to check with like the list of the units or the monsters types and the artifacts that I just gave, if that artifact would fit on like a unit that has multiple lines that make sense. You don't have to go for every unit to have 4 lines that make sense. If you have 2 lines that are very high roll that make sense, it's already a fine artifact. 3 lines perfectly fine, 4 is of course perfect, but aim for 2 lines at least that make sense on that unit. And 2 lines is technically very easy because you can actually do this with a special enchant. Also, another side question: do you recommend? Oh wait, you can't even see this. Ha. You can do this with the conversion stones to actually make anything that is a 1 line that's bad into a 2 line that's good. With this, I don't recommend to go do this with a 4 stars because it's kind of costly, but I do really recommend to do this with a 3 stars always every week. And then just aim for the things that you're mainly missing. So talking about artifacts that are, why do I keep them, and just giving a few of examples. I only have PC artifacts here. So this artifact I would keep mainly for going into crit damage. If it rolls anything else than crit damage, I sell it. This artifact I would keep for accuracy S3. I'm not really sure what I would use it for, but if not, I would probably sell it. And the additional damage by defense is also decent if it rolls high into that. Defense artifacts are not that great because you're mostly gonna sell them. This artifact for me is just 100% accuracy S3. The other 2 lines I don't care too much about. This artifact, crit damage S3, crit damage S1, and crit Aki S3, all 3 pretty good lines if it rolls fully into them. But if it starts spreading like 1 in each, it's actually a shit artifact for me. Also keep in mind, with all of the artifacts, you want to keep the highest you have. So you actually want to know if you have like extra damage on fire. Extra damage on fire, and we put it by this, and we do it by this. So this is all of my water extra damage on fire. So if I have an 18, maybe you want to have multiple 18s, as I have like a few of them. Some are attack based, some are not. But you always want to strive for getting the higher than the thing you already have, or if you need multiple to get like a similar line. There's a lot of artifacts you just need 1 or 2 of. Like for example, reduction from X element on like a strange element. For example, your light unit reduction from fire or something. It is used here and there against like Shiner Martina, for example. But for those, you just want to keep 1 or 2. But with anything that you could use multiple, just start stacking everything that's like at least double roll, double max roll, triple rolls, that kind of stuff. So with that said, there's a lot of lines that actually do make sense. And like I said, also with my rune video, give everything a chance to triple roll. If you give everything a chance to triple roll, and it is actually pretty good, you could even have like an HP type bomb damage, which is very high. You only need 1 of those, because there's, well, technically Jojo is a bomber, but no one uses that. But what if a new bomber unit comes out with HP? I am pretty sure I have an HP type. Wait, what unit is HP in here? HP type unit, HP, and then bomber. And then this, maybe it's on the, yeah, for example this. I have a 15% bomb damage on HP type. Not gonna use it anyhow for anything right now, but if a new unit comes, I'm gonna use this. But if I get one that is 16, I'm probably going to sell this one that is 15. So that's the kind of mindset I have, to replace anything with the best you already have. If you're talking about additional damage by speed, which is probably the most likely thing that you want to aim for with a lot of your artifacts, you want to keep as many as possible with as many multiple different lines as well. Also keep in mind, it is sometimes or often better to have multiple lines of additional damage rather than just 1 line of additional damage by speed. I have another video of that. I link all of the videos in the description down below, but do check that one out about additional damage and how you can calculate how much additional damage it actually adds. And you actually, if you write it down, that you might actually find that this artifact might be better than this artifact for specific units, or vice versa. So keep that in mind for your artifacts. Okay, then final tips. As you guys can see, I'm storing 951 artifacts here, which is technically not possible, right? So to get this much space, because we actually do really need more than 400 space. If you're watching this in the future and you're like, oh, these poor people had to do it with 400 space, we got like X amount right now. Poor people. Yes, poor people us right now. So 400 space is really bad, because literally you want from every element towards every element. You want reduction from every element, and you want extra damage on every element. So that's 5 times 5 on like everything already. That fills up a lot of slots, and then you have to go for all of the other lines. That's just a few PC lines that you have already. That's just filling up like some storage stuff for like Siege and stuff. So you actually want a lot of artifacts. So how do I store 900 artifacts? I store artifacts on legit every unit that I have. Every 6-star that I have is storing artifacts, and that's storing artifacts that I don't use right now, but I feel like will be used in the future. A good way to do that is just simply go through your box. You do this, and you just start checking every unit that is in your storage, everything. You just want to put artifacts on. You're just gonna fill like 2 artifacts. Even if some of the artifacts you put in there, this one is one missing. If there's one missing for me, it pretty much just means that I started using that artifact rather than have that on a placeholder, and I don't always be super active on checking like, okay, does everyone has a good artifact. Another thing which I did recently, it did take me a good amount of like 2 to 3 hours to get rid of really old bad artifacts, which is if you select equipped artifacts and you select on obtained and you scroll all the way down, you're gonna find the first artifacts that you had. And actually, most of the times, the first artifacts that you have were pretty bad. So I'm not gonna find bad artifacts anymore because I removed them, I sold them, and it took me about a good hour and a half to remove all of the bad artifacts. It made me about like 150 slots on units I could fill other artifacts on. And then I went through the whole list again of all of my units to put artifacts on all of these units. Sure, it does take a good amount of time, but that way you're actually gonna fill like your box with artifacts with. Even at the bottom, all of these artifacts are somewhat usable. Something like this, it is very strange, wind reduction from light, but you could actually use it the moment you have a specific light tank needed or something like that. If it's just a triple line, you can save it. Anything high efficient, you can save it. Anything high efficient can be useful at some point. If it's not useful right now, just throw it in the storage, and that's how your way to go for artifacts. I want to keep this video short and compact. It's probably just about 50 minutes, I hope. But this is in a nutshell what you should do for artifacts, which kind of lines are good for units, and you just have to look at your units, be actively looking at your units while farming artifacts, keeping in mind like, okay, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense. Also, if you do not know exactly where an artifact should go, my Discord is in the description down below as well. In my Discord, I have this channel for what about this rune/artifact. You can actually go on that one and just post your artifact and ask like, okay, which unit can use it? And there's always either me or someone else from my community replying to your artifact. Same thing for runes. There's always someone replying like, oh, this artifact could go on this unit, this artifact could go on this unit. And the main thing to keep in mind is just going high efficiency. If your artifacts are high efficiency, they are probably worth it to be placed somewhere, even if the lines are pretty weird. Sure, you have a whole bunch of lines which are just pretty much placeholders where you have like recovery S3 and S2 and then crit damage S4 on attack-based artifact. Yeah, sure, that's just complete garbage. There's gonna be a whole bunch of lines that are like that. Those you should just sell, or just those are very good for world boss in case you care about world boss. But most of the times you just want to sell them and not use them at all. So do keep in mind that these lines actually have to fit to the thing that I said before with all of the units, with all of the things. If you want me to post that somewhere, I can post it somewhere as well. I think it's pretty useful, and otherwise just make a screenshot of whatever before. And that is it for this video. I hope you really enjoyed. I hope you have a nice New Year's Eve, because this is posted pretty much the day before New Year's Eve. It's probably going to be the last video of this year, so I hope you enjoyed it and like this video, and see you in the next one.